We'll give folks one more minute. And if you have joined us, please edit your name so that we can see it. If it says iPhone or a number, make sure your name is written in, or I'm happy to edit it for you if you tell me your name. That way we can make sure we can count that you attended.
Hi, Flo.
Hi, Flo.
Flo's in the house.
Flo, are you working at Trader Joe's?
No.
No? Well, I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, I did get a job though.
You did get a job?
Ooh, yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Where?
I have to help people with trees and stuff.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
You have to stay hydrated though. If you're outside all day, you have to drink a lot of water.
But I'm actually outside right now.
You're outside right now? How is it? Is it hot?
Well, if you're moving, yeah. I mean, I usually sweat, so.
Oh, I bet.
That's just me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just don't skate and talk at the same time.
It's not a problem.
Oh boy.
Because Ben did it once and he like rolled. He like fell and tripped. You gotta watch out.
I can't really hear you right now. I'll call you when I get home.
Bye, Flo.
All right.
All right, and with that, we can get started. I would like to begin by making an introduction to a new member of the Enroot team, and that is to introduce Ms. Vanya Laredo, who is here, who is our new program manager. So we'll give her a round of applause. You can find Vanya. She's the waving, smiling face in the participants. Vanya is going to be our program manager, so she'll be doing the matching. And this is what Paula used to do before she became program director at Cambridge. But the Enroot family continues to grow, so we are so happy to have Vanya here. Vanya, I'd like to say a few quick words to our awesome students.
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Vanya. I'm really excited to start getting to know you and starting to getting in this place of just like knowledge and understanding some of the things that you are working on, because I would love to partner up and see how we can help you succeed. So happy to be here, happy to start making the introductions, and I know we're gonna have a fun year ahead of us.
We don't know yet.
Harry will have a great year.
We'll be going out here. We still don't know how to against each other.
Oh, we'll find a way, even if it's virtual, but yes. Harry, with your cool mask. All right, so let's get started, everyone. We are joined we have some Enroot staff members here as well. If you want to say a quick hello. We've got
Hello.
Teresa.
I missed you all. I can't wait to see you all in person and maybe give you guys a hug after the pandemic.
No, not now. No awkward now.
Air hugs, air hugs.
Air hugs for everyone.
Yeah.
We have Paula as well. Yay.
Hi, y'all. I miss you. Miss your faces. I'm happy that you're here. Yeah, I'm excited for this content, and Rose has done a lot of hard work to get you informed about job search and work prospects. So hopefully we'll all learn a lot today.
Awesome. And I believe Roxy is also on the call.
Yes, I am still here.
Yeah.
Y'all are stuck with me another year. Glad to be back.
Yeah. Good. We got Roxy. Awesome. Okay. So if you haven't done so yet, please make sure you mute yourself throughout the presentation, but you can ask some questions as well. So to get started, I'm looking at two screens. So I'm going to be Zoom DJ right now, where I'm kind of moving and clicking through, and sometimes I'll be facing this way, but the whole time I will be making sure that if you do have questions, please feel free to raise your hand, or you can unmute yourself and ask them. but there will be some time to ask questions. Okay, so the hustle is real. Welcome to Enroot's Quick Employment Guide. So today I'll be sharing some tips on employment. We'll do a deep dive into some common terms and make sure I open it up for some questions that you may have. The format's pretty interactive, so ask some questions, type some things in the chat box, unmute yourself like I said. This session is being recorded, so if you're really interested in something I've said and you want to maybe hear it again or think about it again, we'll be sharing out the link to this presentation and you can take a look at it afterwards. So like I said, I'm using 2 laptops, so you'll see me moving around. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Rose Francois. I'm the Senior Director of Program, and I get the opportunity to work with this amazing staff that we just introduced. And you'll occasionally see me, you may have seen me in Somerville or Cambridge, making some amazingly bad jokes, but I think I'm a comedian, so you might hear them again today. Lucky you. So let's get started. So our agenda today, we'll be talking about a few things. We'll talk about employment. What is a job? We'll talk about finding a job, applying for a job. I'll help you consider some job options. We want to think outside of the box. That's going to be a recurring theme. And throughout the presentation, there will be some job options that are going to be mentioned, some job tips that are going to be mentioned. So you'll see those. And if you have questions, ask those questions. There'll be specific time for that. So what is a job? The definition, the textbook definition, is that a job is the exchange of labor, meaning work, for compensation, meaning money. One way to think about it is you are giving your time and your skill set to someone else, and they in return are giving you money, typically back. But that's not always the case. An example is an unpaid internship where you're still working, but they'll give you back experience, meaning you're going to get skills that you might not necessarily have gotten elsewhere. But typically, when we're talking about a job, we are talking about this exchange. So what are the pros and cons of having a job? There are some obvious pros, meaning you can get some job skills. So you have a job and that's a chance for you to try out maybe something that you haven't tried out before. It's a chance for you to learn. And the skills you gain, you can take and bring to your next job, or the skills you gain can help you apply for another job, an even better job. On-the-job training is one of the biggest skills that you're able to get from having a job. An example of this, for example, could be if you work at CCTV, which is the Community Television Network. And all of a sudden you're video editing, you're able to take photos, you're learning a lot about camera work, and now you have a new skill of digital editing or camera work. And that's a skill you can put on your resume. That's something where maybe you had fun, but you now have a skill that is marketable. You now have a skill that's you can take forward with you. So that's one of the pros of having a job. An obvious pro, meaning a good thing, is money. You get paid for a job. So compensation is obviously one of the benefits, and that's probably one of the most common benefits for having a job. Another pro is, what if you have a job that's really interesting, really fun? That's probably one of the best things. I consider myself very lucky in that I find my job interesting. I find it engaging. I find it fulfilling. And that is another thing to think about when you have a job or when you're looking for a job. Do you like the people you work with? Are you able to have fun with them? Do they get your jokes? Or at least if they're like people I work with, they laugh even though they don't find them funny. But whatever it is, you know, you want to think about maybe the job is interesting, and that's one of the best pros. So let's talk about the cons. One of the biggest cons is time, right? You are giving your time to someone else. Time you could be spent maybe catching up on a Netflix show, or sleeping, or napping, or eating, or just spending time with your friends or family. So that's one of the cons when we're trying to think of, okay, what should I do with my time? You're going to give some of it to someone else. Another con could be the fact that it's a balancing act. You're going to school and you're working, and sometimes it's not easy, right? You come home from work and you're tired and you have schoolwork and you need to make sure you're paying attention to your schoolwork. At the end of the day, going to school and achieving those goals of academics is going to help you in the future so that you can get a better job. So it's not easy, but that's something that I think a lot of people experience. Another con, of course, is maybe it's boring. Maybe you have a job that you don't get along with people, or maybe it's not interesting, it doesn't feel engaging, and that can make you feel kind of, well, just bored. Has anyone here ever had a boring job? Raise your hand or thumbs up. Yeah, we've had boring jobs. You know, that's something that I think everyone experiences at some point in their life. And it's not the worst con, it's not the worst thing, but it is something that happens. So we talked about the pros and the cons, and we understand, though, generally, working is a good thing. Being able to have employment is a good thing. So even though it might be a little bit boring, you might say, but I'm still getting great skills, and I'll do this for a little while, and then I'll move on to something greater or better. And I think that's a pretty solid plan. So let's talk about finding a job. Finding a job, whether that's in the real world or the virtual world. I have a few items listed here where you can think about, well, these are great places to find a job. And so, like I said, some of these are in the real world, some of these are in the virtual world. And once again, thinking outside of the box, meaning what are other ways to look at one problem? So I want to find a job. A few of these are unique ways to think about that. The first one is Indeed, which is indeed.com. And the top three, these are websites. Indeed is one of the most popular websites if you're looking for a job. It's online, it's like the Google of jobs. You go in and you find so many jobs, sometimes too many, and might feel a little overwhelming. So you want to go on Indeed and maybe do a job search. What's very important about Indeed is that you can look for a job. Maybe it's not just, you know, a job in the office. Maybe you're looking for just a word that you hope a job description has. So you could say, immigrants. You can type in immigrants and they'll show you all of the jobs that say maybe you work with immigrants. Or what if you're looking for a job where you can use your native language? Put that in and they'll show you all of the jobs about your language. So don't just think about the job to say maybe nursing or grocery store. Think of other things and you'll find that there are other jobs that are maybe more tailored to what you want to do. Monster.com is very similar to Indeed. It's a bit more, I would say, formal. It's kind of more the older generation. Indeed is a bit more popular, I think, with younger folks. Monster, though, very similar. A lot of office jobs are on Monster. They usually pull the same type of data, but Monster is just another option for you. And there's a ton of options, but those are two that are similar. Idealist, maybe you want a job where you change the world. Maybe you want a job where you work with animals or children or the environment, or you just really want to care and you're passionate about the work you do. I recommend idealist.com, org, I believe it's com. Idealist is a great website where you can actually look for jobs that really make an impact in society. You can find volunteering or paid jobs there. And sometimes people say, well, I didn't actually know I could find a job about something I'm passionate about. I highly recommend Idealist as a website to go to if you're looking for that type of job. And as Roxy said, that's how she found her job at Enroot. We advertise on idealist.com. So keep that in mind, you know, if you're looking for a very specific type of job, maybe there's a search engine for that field in particular. Another place to look for jobs are an organization's website. What I mean by that is, let's say you want to get a job at Target or maybe a college. Instead of going to one of these search engines, you go directly to that website. You go to target.com or you go to Bunker Hill Community College and you look to see what they have in their career section. Sometimes some places do not advertise their jobs on a ton of other websites and they'll have it maybe just on their website. Always check that organization's website in the career section or the job section, and you can see maybe their most updated jobs there. So don't always assume you'll find it on Indeed. If there's a particular place you want to work, make sure you go to their website to check out their career page. The other place to find a job, or the other way to find a job, is word of mouth, meaning you talking to someone else. Let someone know that you're looking for a job. You can really say, hey, I'm actually looking for a job. Do you know anyone that's hiring? Do you know anywhere that's hiring? That's a great way to use your network to help them help you find a job. Finding a job is like a part-time job in and of itself. It's so much work. Get other people to help you. And with that, using your connections. And you might say, but I don't actually have a lot of connections. I don't really have a big network. Well, you might have a tutor or a mentor or a former mentor, or you might know someone in your neighborhood or a teacher or an advisor. And maybe just saying, hey, here's what I'm looking for. I'm thinking of a job. Have you heard anything? Or do you have any tips for me? Using those connections. There are many times where someone will tell me they're looking for a job and I'll be at an event or a party and someone says, yeah, we're looking to hire. And I'll think, oh, I know someone. And that's only because they were able to tell me that they were looking for something. So help people to help you find a job. So tip number 1, research your top workplaces. Who in here likes to read reviews about movies, restaurants, anything before they try it out? Most people, right? You want to read a review because if they say the food is not great, you don't want to eat there. Or if the movie apparently was terrible, you don't want to see it. So it's kind of like having the same thing. So Glassdoor.com is a review website, but for jobs, for places to work. If you read a review that says, yes, this place is fantastic. I love the people I work with. The benefits are wonderful. They respect me. You probably want to work there. You're interested in it. Or if you read a review that's kind of like this, not so great. Also, there's a green mark on the slides that I can't get rid of, so please ignore that. But if you read that review, you probably are a little nervous about working there. It's just information for you. Remember, it's a two-way street when you're applying for a job. You want to know as much about them as they want to know about you. So you want to go in there as prepared as possible. It doesn't mean you shouldn't work there. It just helps you to know what you're getting into. So the application process. The application process can feel like it's so much, like it's a ton of things that you have to do. The most important thing I recommend is to break it down in little pieces, right? It's the same way if you have a huge assignment, you don't just tackle it all at the same time if you have a huge project. You think about it in smaller chunks so that you can actually make it work for you. First step, before you even start applying, find out what you need to apply. Meaning, what are they listing? Are they asking for just the application? Do they want a resume as well, which we'll get into? Do they want a cover letter? What else do they want so that you know and you can be ready to provide it? Because the worst thing is when you start it and then you're tired and then there's so much to do and then you realize you don't even have everything ready and then you said, yep, I'll go back to it. But then next thing you know, sometimes the job closes. Be ready. Just find out first, this is what I'll need. I'll apply to that tomorrow. I have everything ready then. And check the details. Details are extremely important in the job hunt process, and we'll talk about that in detail. But you want to check the details. Is this job looking for individuals with certain certificates? Do you need a certain license? Are they very particular about things like status? Or are they particular about location? You want to know where you will be working, especially when we're thinking about now. Maybe you only want to do virtual work and this says virtual until in person, and you might not be comfortable with that. Or maybe it is only in person and that's something you're okay with. So make sure you're just reading the details. Sometimes it might be easy to skim the job and apply, but really take that time to say, yep, I'm on board with all of this, or at least most of it, and then you can apply. Prepare all the documents you need ahead of time, meaning have your resume ready, have your application, or rather your cover letter ready before you start going through that process. That way you won't feel overwhelmed and it's just plug and play. And don't try to apply to many, many, many jobs in one day. That will leave you exhausted and maybe burnt out. So I recommend applying to 1 or 2 jobs per day max. And if you really set that goal for yourself, then if you're applying to maybe 1 job, then you'll feel like you accomplished something rather than, ugh, I didn't apply to any jobs today. I feel terrible. I'm not meeting my goal. Remember, you want to be your biggest supporter in this. You want to make sure you're setting yourself up for success. So giving yourself a goal of maybe 1 job per day, and even if it's maybe 1 or 2 jobs in like a week, great, that's your goal and you did it. Tip number 2. So tip number 2, It's important to always review your work. Check your spelling on all documents. You have to make sure that you're looking at the spelling anytime you're sending out a resume, an application, everything. It's so easy to find spelling mistakes, and it's the worst impression, right? You're trying to maybe put your best foot forward. You want them to know you're really someone that they can count on. And then you have a spelling mistake. And the whole time, all that person can think about while they're reading your document is your spelling mistake. So paying attention to details is incredibly, incredibly important. Speaking of which, anything stand out here on this slide other than the green streak? Anything? Anything interesting about this presentation slide? Any of our students want to unmute themselves and point out the mistake? Thank you, Andita. Your. It shouldn't be you are. It should be Y-O-U-R. So meaning your. This says you are when in reality it should be your. Details matter. It's super important, but when we're in a rush, it's very easy to slip something in. So this is why someone else is more likely to catch your mistake than you are. And this is why it's important to have someone else review your work. So let's talk about where this is so crucial and super important in your resume and cover letter. Some jobs require a cover letter, some jobs require a resume. You might be asking yourself, what's a resume? What's a cover letter? Why are they so complicated? Why do you need one? What is all the obsession about the two? So let's quickly break it down and talk about the resume. So a resume is essentially a short version of your relevant work history. I say short because I mean keep it to one page, and I say relevant because you don't want to put every job you've ever had in your entire life. You want to be a little bit more selective to say these are the jobs I've worked. And if you're a high school student, you probably haven't had a ton of jobs and you're wondering, well, what am I going to put on my resume? Well, for starters, write the fact that you have been in clubs maybe, or that you've won awards, or that you are taking courses elsewhere, or maybe you've volunteered, or, and this is definitely in a course, you're going to put Enroot on your resume. You definitely want to put Enroot on your resume. A lot of students think maybe I don't need to put it, or well, what does it mean? Or what does it matter? If an employer sees that you have an after-school program on your resume and you're a high school student, this is a signal to them that, wow, this person actually is getting extra support. This person has extra skills. They're doing a bit more than maybe the average high schooler. And so putting Enroot on your resume is a fantastic thing to do. So what is a cover letter? A cover letter is essentially the kind of companion. It's the buddy to the resume. It's the resume's friend, and it's basically the one that explains to the person reading your resume what they're looking at. So that's where you get to tell your story. That's where you're able to really kind of shine and explain to people why you're interested in the job and why you think your skills are making you a great candidate. There are a number of resume and cover letter templates. You can use Microsoft Word, or because a lot of you have Chromebooks, you can actually use Google. Google Docs has wonderful, beautiful templates for both resumes and cover letters. They're free, they're easy to use, you just put in what you want. One of the things I do recommend is reading your resume and your cover letter out loud. It's probably the best way to find mistakes, because if you start reading it out loud and you realize this doesn't sound like a human, then you don't want to submit that. You want it to sound natural. And so this is a great way to quickly spot a mistake. And if you're reading it out loud, you're like, oh, this sounds weird. Don't send it. Quickly edit it or ask someone else to read it out loud and review it, and then you can change the words around. A tip I do have also is when you are applying for a job, making sure to check your email. And I know a lot of folks might not love checking email because right now it's so easy to quickly talk to people via text. Email is still the traditional way that employers will communicate with you. So check your email regularly so that you don't miss out on maybe, hey, can we chat? or I'd love to have you come into the office, or can you talk via video? So make sure you're checking your email on a regular basis when you're applying for jobs. I'm going to double down on the cover letter tip because yes, include a cover letter, even if you're not sure, especially for those of you who are in college, because those are the individuals that really want to see a cover letter. They want to get a sense of you. Sometimes if you're applying for a job and you don't have a cover letter, you won't even be considered. Your application, they won't even look at it. So make sure you're including that. But the real tip is this: when you're applying for a cover letter for a job, make sure that you look at the job description and you put in some of the words that are in the job description in your resume and your cover letter. And I'm going to explain what that can look like. So let's say you're applying for a job and they say they're looking for an organized person with attention to detail. Very common. What you can do is look at those words in their job description, and when you're writing your resume, say, being a part of Enroot while going to school meant that I had to be very organized to stay on top of my schedule. A skill that I can bring to this role is my attention to detail, a trait I developed by taking notes in class and meetings. What you're doing is hacking the mind. You are helping that person who's reading your resume think of you as organized and detail-oriented. So pull some words from the job description and put them in your resume and put them in your cover letter. So let's quickly talk about some job options. I know what you're thinking. I'm a high schooler. I don't have too many options, or I'm a college student and I'm not sure. So we're going to start with the out of the box thinking. So here are some other job options. What if you work for yourself? What if you start your own business? And that sounds kind of like this crazy, massive thing until I'm sure everyone has heard of having a side gig, right? Or hustling. So these are the same types of things, and they're very easy to do with very little startup, like not too much work from you to kind of get them up and running. An obvious one is tutoring. Maybe you are really good at math and you can tutor individuals virtually and offer your services. Maybe you're good at science, maybe it's English, whatever it is, that's a skill you have that maybe someone does not have and they're willing to pay you to get. You can also consider being a language partner for someone. What maybe you take for granted as, yeah, of course I speak these 2 or 3 languages, or of course this is my native tongue. Someone could be just really hoping to learn, and you could be their language tutor or language partner. And that is something people are 100% willing to pay for because it's not easy to find out there, especially if it's a language that's very specific. So think about that as an option. I also recommend lawn care and snow removal. Maybe it's taking leaves from someone's lawn, or it's removing snow from the steps. This is also very popular for older folks. This is something that, for example, in the past, I've been looking for my parents, and I couldn't find anyone to do it. And it used to be, back in the day, young people would always be out removing snow, and they're not doing that anymore. That's a great way to seize upon the market to say, next snowstorm, I'm going to advertise on Craigslist, and I'll show up and remove snow. I'm sure that, a lot of people are able to also pay via mobile. So keep that in mind, just to know that there's a lot of different options. Some people also swear by taking quizzes or surveys online. People will pay for your opinions. So a lot of individuals are a little unsure about that, but think about this. Hot Cheetos. Someone had to try them and say, yes, this was delicious. So they did that by surveys or tasting or mailing them to people, and people got to try them out. So there's a lot of ways online where people are looking for opinions. And I highly recommend taking a look at those. I do also caution to be wary. Make sure you're not sharing too much information. So make sure that you're finding a site that's a .com that's very reputable, and do a little research on them so that you're not just sharing data, but that it's maybe a sample that people want your opinions on, especially if you're a young person, because you are the target market for a lot of products out there. You might consider being a virtual assistant. And what that means is you would essentially mean that you are helping someone out. You would be the person to get a few tasks and do them on your own time and get them back to someone. A lot of people nowadays are very busy, but not crazy busy, but just busy enough where they need someone to make reservations or kind of book things or kind of help them out with certain things online. And that's what a virtual assistant is. And the last one is one that is extremely easy to get into as a hobby. I know a lot of students here have this tendency to watch other people play video games. Did you know you can get paid for that, for playing a video game? So YouTube, if you start a YouTube channel, you can actually become monetized, meaning they will pay you after you start having about 1,000 subscribers. I am not saying that's easy to get, but what I am saying is if you are passionate about something and you want to just put videos where you're talking about it, whether it's makeup, whether it's cats, whatever it is, people will actually be watching you and they'll be interested in that. I've found myself watching interesting videos and thinking, huh, okay, I didn't think I'd be a fan of this, but now I am. So there are a lot of cool ways to get content that you're passionate out there to people, and it's a great way to actually make some money. The more traditional job options. Now, I put the asterisk here, that little star there, because we are right now in a pandemic. And some of these I would 100%, as always, caution, use your level of comfort. You want to make sure that if you're not interested in in-person jobs, then those aren't the ones that you would want. Make sure that you are asking questions about safety and best practices. So make sure that you're thinking about what works best for you and your level of comfort. Some of these jobs, particularly some of them in offices and internships, can be either in person or virtual. And so keep that in mind when you're thinking of your level of comfort. But these are traditional ones where you can find them online or word of mouth. And some of these are typically more word of mouth, especially supermarkets. And I know a couple of students have gotten jobs at supermarkets from individuals who have recommended them. I'm looking at you, Harry. Tip number 4, really, and I've said this before, but use your connections. Really, sometimes we might be a little self-conscious and not necessarily want people to know that we're looking for a job, but everyone really is working. And sometimes we're working multiple jobs, but this is a great way to really have that discussion and say, just so you know, I'm looking for something new. I'm looking for new opportunities. I'm looking to get new skills. However you want to word it, let people know, and you will find that you will make certain connections. I have found that this has helped me throughout my life, throughout my career. And if you start early being comfortable expressing that and kind of helping people help you, you will find that you can actually make some great connections and get some help. So let's look at all of the tips together. 1, research your top workplaces. Using glassdoor.com, you can find a lot of information about wherever you want to work, whether it's an office, whether it's a specific location. You can get a lot of information, and once again, knowledge is power. You know what you're getting into. Number 2.
Wait.
Oh, there's a question.
What is it called?
Is that Flow? Oh, the website? Yes, glassdoor.com. Awesome. Number 2, check your spelling. Read it out loud. Ask someone else to read it for you. This is something that your mentors, your tutors really are super excited about. This is something we've worked with you on and will continue to work with you on, because your resume is a document that will continue to change, and you will continue to be doing new things at school that certainly is going to be helpful. I saw a comment here about going to depth about starting your own business, and I'll definitely address that during the Q&A, so that's perfect. Good to know that there's interest in that. So definitely check your spelling, make sure that you're looking out for mistakes and that you're asking other people to kind of help you with that as well. Include a cover letter. Please make sure you're including a cover letter when you're sending out jobs, unless it's only asking for an application, at which case, if it's just the application, then great. If there's room for a cover letter, add a cover letter. It never hurts. And when you are including a cover letter, please make sure to update it. A great tip is, let's say you really want to find a job and you know where it is that you want to work, and maybe you know the name of the person who's hiring, or you could do a very quick Google search to find out the name of the person. Instead of sending a letter that says to whom it may concern, send a letter that says to so-and-so and it has their name. That's an additional touch and attention to detail. Use your connections. Definitely let people know you're looking for a job. That's a great way for them to help you. And think outside of the box. So maybe it's not just, I'm looking for this one job and this is the only thing I can think about. It's, what are additional revenue streams I can think about? What else could I do with my time? Or maybe something you think is just a hobby is an amazing skill that someone is willing to definitely make sure that they compensate you for. Or you can advertise on YouTube and use to start your own business. Remember, with all of this, you have to balance your time. What that means is school is your priority. You are a student. Yes, it is super important to get a job, but it is also important to achieve your academic goals. And that's why we're here for you at Enroot. Certainly, we want to make sure we can help you balance that. We're going to make sure we get you some additional skills, expose you to as much as possible, because options are the best thing that you can have. You can say, yes, I'm interested in this, or how about I try this out? And suddenly you'll see a whole world open up to you. But you want to balance your time and make sure you're focusing on homework, achieving your goals. And if you need help, we're here to help you. We're here to provide you with a tutor, a mentor, making sure that you know you have that additional support and that you can 100% count on us. I do want to open it up for questions right now, however, and I know one came in, and I think it was Lubens. Lubens, do you mind expanding upon that? But if you have questions, please put them in the chat box, or if you want to unmute yourself, and we'll try to field them. But quickly, just a quick thank you. And if anyone does have to leave, just know that we will be sharing this recording, and thanks for coming out. So there's a question from Jose. How about if you're filing an application, but you didn't have any education, that you went to high school, for example, and it's required on the application? What do you recommend? That's a really good question. So for example, if they need high school information, one of the things to think about is on the other side. So I've hired individuals before, and sometimes when you're starting out in your career, you might not know what's going on in the mind of someone who's hiring. This is where your resume, rather your cover letter, comes in really handy. Remember, that's your chance to tell your story. So you could say something like, the reason I'm very adaptable is because I came here from a different country. I learned a new language. I'm able to really adjust to my environment, and say that, while I did not have a traditional high school education, these are the skills, or this is what I was able to pick up, and this is what I'm going to offer you. And so when I see that personally, I'm like, oh, great, this is awesome, because you're not like everyone else. What you might think is a weakness is actually a strength, because you are thinking differently from everyone else. So approach everything from that angle of this is a strength. And this is a great type of question to maybe have a discussion with your mentor about, to say, what would you recommend, or what additional options would you have? Because remember, that's another person that's familiar with you and can connect with you. I hope that was helpful. Teresa also has a comment. Yeah.
I guess my question is, oftentimes we say, oh, I never had a job. And what would you recommend for somebody who never had a job, but maybe they were taking care of, siblings, or maybe serving as translators to their parents, cousins, or uncles and aunts? How can you put that down as a job experience?
That's a great question. Who in here has had to translate for their parents, whether it's like in a meeting or a lot of us. So it might have felt maybe a little annoying at the time or kind of overwhelming. What that translates to is you now have the ability to really be a person who is able to communicate well. You're able to facilitate a conversation. You're able to do something that most American students never have had to do until they're adults. And as a young person, that's a skill. You're able to use your language skills to go back and forth. So how would you address that? What I would say is that, once again, it's that resume. You're able to say, as a young person, as a young immigrant coming to the US, I translated documents for my parents. I attended high-level meetings. I have had experience that most of my peers, most of people my age have not had. What that means to me is that I'm able to be very confident in situations that are maybe a bit more intense for others. And I myself have this skill. I'm a caretaker. I've had to, because remember, caretaking is an actual job. People are getting paid for that. It just means you're doing it for your siblings. So babysitters have resumes. So you can say, I've had babysitting experience. And maybe you were a babysitter for someone else's family. They can write you a letter of recommendation. Ask them to write you something. You can Google Translate it, even if they write it in their language, and include that in your application. Sometimes when you're uploading documents, it's not just the application you're uploading. You can also upload additional documents. Use that. Put in a recommendation from them. Was that helpful? Okay.
I think Lubin's question, it was about like, what are the steps to start your own business? Maybe you can kind of review.
Yeah, so it really depends. If you are starting out small, then you're basically not necessarily going to start your own business per se. You're starting a gig, and you're not necessarily going to start dealing with taxes or licenses. For example, a lot of people think you need a specific license to start your own business. You actually don't, unless you are starting a store, what is known as a brick and mortar business. If you are starting something online, for example, YouTube, you don't need anything other than creating an account. If you are starting, maybe you are making appliance, you're creating something and you want to sell that, you can 100% do that. Once we start talking about, wow, I'm making some good money, that's when we start going into taxes. The first step is, one, you want to do research on, is this a business where I'll actually generate income, or do you just want to test out the waters? That really is the first step. Once you have said, actually, this is a business that I want to file, I want to think about taxes, I want to be licensed in the city, I want to have a bank account, and we're talking larger scale. Let's say you started selling purses for a little bit and all of a sudden hundreds of people are buying your purses and you now have a purse business. You can actually start a business. It's called an LLC, limited liability company. And there are a number of websites where you can do that. It does cost money, but that's kind of like out there. What I would say is start a business by literally just saying, what is it that I'm going to do? And then say, maybe I want to give people an invoice. You can do that on Microsoft Word. You can Google that. You can say, how much do I want to charge people? You know, how much do I want to, how do I want to document that? You can do that all by Googling. And you can get all of the documentation, and Google Docs also has invoices and receipts. So you don't need a license per se. Start small. And once you start to grow bigger, then you can start doing, for example, an LLC to start your own business. I hope that was a little bit more helpful and in detail. And I can certainly answer more questions if anyone wants to shoot me an email, and I can give you some links as well. There's some great links, and I can't highlight enough, and this might be probably one of the best tips I received, is using YouTube to research what it is you want to learn about. We sometimes think of YouTube as just a place to get kind of like general information. There's so much you can learn, and then you'll wonder, why didn't I learn this in school? You are in charge of your education, so if there's something you want to learn more about, do a deep dive and go to Google, and you can find a ton of information about it. Here's a question. What jobs would you recommend to an immigrant that's not very fluent in English? That's a great question. I mean, one of the things is you are working on your English, or the immigrants work on their English constantly. If you're a student, that's one of the most important things, is to always put that as a factor. We sometimes might think it's really hard to learn the language, I'm never going to do it. You're always exposed to it. So always have that positive mindset of, the more I practice, the better I will be. So that's something you want to think about. In terms of jobs, maybe it's a place that wants a translator. It could be, so if this is more relevant, a bit more relevant for those who are 18 and above, where there are a lot of places that work with maybe the population that you have the language skill for, find those places. So I specifically wanted to work in a place that had Haitian Creole. So at Enroot, I literally Googled, what are the places that speak this language or that are looking for that? And voila, a couple of other places came up, including Enroot, and I said, let's apply for this job. So do a search for maybe the language that you speak and say, maybe there are a few options. Another thing is going back to that tutoring. Maybe you can correct or translate, meaning some people will send you papers or documents, and all you have to do is say, yep, this makes sense, or this is accurate. So think of that avenue as well. But as you build your English skill, start maybe by thinking of what are those other places that are looking particular for that language skill. And it might take some time. I mean, some places want you to be fluent in both languages, but keep looking and practicing. And I recommend, partnering with someone who wants to learn your language. And there are a lot of places online where someone will say, I'll speak with you regularly if you speak with me in that language. Any other questions in here? And you can unmute yourself. What I will say is it can seem daunting. It can seem like a really big project. Make it kind of small so that you're able to do it. I think I heard someone unmute themselves.
I can say something quickly.
Hi, Harry. Yes.
The thing I'm just gonna say like it depends on find a job. Sometimes, when the people find a job, don't find it, find a job is good, but when you find a job, don't depend on how much the money they're gonna pay. Like you can find a job, they say like example, okay, I'm gonna find a job, and they say they're gonna pay $13 per hour. If I'm looking for more the money, I'm looking for $18. I don't want to apply for that. But the most important thing is I just say that because I see so many people do that kind of stuff, like so many students do that. They say, I'm not gonna apply for this job, you don't pay well, you just, but my example, I'm gonna tell them, don't wait to fight, don't say, okay, I'm gonna find a job who's not gonna pay well. The most important thing is, if you find a job, just take it. If you're waiting, say you're gonna sit down one for a long time. They cannot find a job. They're not gonna call. You can apply for many jobs, and they pay that. You say, oh, I'm gonna find a job who's pay 18, but the jobs pay 13. I'm not gonna find a job who's pay like the more than higher. Like you can just example when I first started. If I find a job you can like pay $12, I say, you know what? I want one thing is like to start the small one to go to the bigger one. After when you have like that's why I mentioned like I want to be student or don't say okay I'm not gonna waiting, I'm not gonna take it, I'm not gonna stay. And we have like you try a job and I don't stay for long, get quick. And you never apply. Find a job is good, but you need to know how if I'm gonna stay for long because of the money they don't pay. If you just leave, you don't find a job you don't want. You can say, okay, you don't find like your position over there. You don't find your what you institution. If you're looking like for um best of the money, they're not gonna hire you. They get because when they tell you say, oh, I'm looking for $18, what the manager they gonna think after you leave? He's gonna think, this person I don't think he's really good for the job because he's looking for the more for more money. That's the point is I've seen many people do kind of stuff like that. I just to mention because I see he's talking about Friday job, also he's talking about the money. That's why I made the point to the student, don't think when you find a job, you can find a job you pay. But when you find a job pay $13, it's good, better. You start because you start your career in the same place like that too. Like after, if you want to live, you live before you live, find other job is find other one is better. If you just if you don't fight, it's not you're gonna sit down for long or 3 months, you cannot find a job.
Harry, they
That's,
make, yeah.
that's why I just make it, but I don't know because I know it's kind of like a fight a job. You can find a job, but people don't look at for the pay. They're not looking for the job what they need. They just looking for how much they pay per hour.
So you bring two very important points up, Harry. Thank you for sharing. And
Yeah,
the two important points is, one of them is sometimes it's, and this reminds me of a quote of, do what you can now until you can do what you want in the future. And so it's kind of, you're playing the long game. You know, do you need a
yeah,
job now? But also think about your future. Maybe you're not there forever, but while you're there, you're also building your plan, you're building your skills so that you're able to apply for another job, a bigger job in the future,
yeah,
if that's what you want. What's
yeah,
interesting is, and this is an interesting part, as good segue to compensation, meaning money. This is one of the most tricky areas, right? Because there's a lot of emotion tied to it. It might feel like, oh, this is so hard. This is really nerve wracking. And to be honest, as immigrants, we sometimes have the expectations of, okay, we'll take it, what we have, we'll take what we can get. And so this
yeah,
is where I caution, Harry. This is where I would say it's important to do that research to understand what kind of job is this? Is it a type of job where they say, this is what we'll offer and it's finished and that's the end? There's no room for negotiation. Or is it the type of job where you can ask for a bit more? Some places, 100%, it's locked in, this is what it is. Another place, there's room, there's flexibility. And I will never forget this situation when I was applying for a job and I was very young. And one of my first jobs, I worked at Home Depot. Don't ask. I was not great at it. But anyway, so I applied for a job and my friend and I both applied for a job. We went in, we applied for a job, and this was many years ago, many years ago. And we asked, and we talked about, we both got interviewed. And afterwards, when we came out of the interview, I said, I got the job. This is how much I'm getting. She said, I got the job. This is how much I'm getting. And I realized she was making a bit more than me. And I said, oh, why did they offer you more? She goes, oh, I just asked for $2 more. And all I thought about was, oh, there's room for negotiation. So this is something to know, in that some places there is no room, exactly as Harry said. It's like you do, in pushing in a way where maybe there is miscommunication might not be the best, but in most places and some places, there is room for negotiation. And what you might not know is that that's actually something that's helpful. I have hired many people, and what I always think is helpful is to have that dialogue. This is something that often we learn very late in life. It can make you feel nervous. It can make you feel a little uncomfortable. What I recommend is practicing, but after you have that information, and maybe asking a friend, if someone already works there, saying, hey, what is it like? Are they gonna, if I ask for, do you think they'll negotiate? You know, if someone says, nope, don't, they won't, it's like, okay, think about it. It's always your decision. But like I said, there are some places they have it set in stone and they're okay with that. But other places there's that flexibility. And Harry, I think you've worked in some roles and you're very familiar, and I've been in those places as well, where it's
yeah.
where they're
That's
very strict.
why. Yeah, that's why I went like I got so many people come to me to help them apply the job. Say how much they pay. When I tell them how much they pay, I say, oh, I'm not gonna apply over there. They did not pay well. What I said, I say, hey, don't take that because you might be don't know they not pay well, but if the other place you apply, they pay then less than the way you get to work. They
And
might
that's,
they yeah. The other thing I tell them, I might be tell you you can apply. Start the first. If you don't like it, you can start before you left. Start a new one.
and that's using word of mouth. So you're able to get more information by asking someone, what's it like? And
Yeah,
then make your final decision. My advice is always going to be to negotiate, to have a conversation. because some places are very helpful and holistic and they'll say, yes, we will always offer you the most. In some places, it's always like, here's a little bit of wiggle room. It really depends. And I have myself personally never had a negative feeling when someone negotiates. And most of the colleagues I talk to, it's not about feelings, it's business. So that's kind of advice where you can play with it, you know, to see how it is. But we have about a minute left. And if you do have any more questions about this, please do not hesitate to send me an email. I'm going to make sure that this recording is sent out to everyone, but I can't say enough. Thank you so much for attending. I hope some of the content has been helpful, but at the end of the day, Enroot is here to support you. We will be providing more content like this. We're going to be touching upon a lot of different things throughout the summer. Because the fall, we're all about making sure that we give you real support. We're going to continue the real support that we've been giving you, but we're giving you some of that concrete life support. So please keep an eye out. You'll be getting invitations to some great stuff. The team is here to always support you, but thank you so much for coming here today, everyone. I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you too, because the thing you bring, I can say, it's kind of like a great thing you make, like to show this, to make the student know about the job. Sometimes the people don't know how to find a job, how you can create like a resume, cover letter, what kind of how can I find the link? Because now you show them. Now the most important again, this is the responsibility of them to take them if they like him, if they don't like him.
Man, you already know the vibes, okay? Just tuned in with your boy, all right? Today,
Hi, Francis.
Medley.
All right, everyone. If you want to say hi to us before you leave and turn
What happened?
we would love to see your face, but we're glad you are here.
Hi, Tanya. Hi, my belly.
Hi.
Hi.
We miss you. Good to see
Hi,
you.
Arbenz. Hi, everyone.
Look at Francine.
Hi, everybody.